it's just a different way of thinking and doing. I think that's something that's very difficult and very different. Sometimes I miss the more communal aspect of living.
Hi, my name is Johnny and welcome to this new series called Life Overseas. In this series we're going to be meeting people who have moved overseas to study, and we'll be thinking about how they've adjusted to life overseas. We'll be thinking about things they've enjoyed, some of the things they may have found difficult, and hopefully through this series it will help some of you who have maybe started life overseas. So this first session we're meeting Matt. He's lived in a range of different places, and so we're looking forward to hearing from him. Hi Matt.
Hello.
So welcome to Life Overseas. I think just to start with, it would be good for people watching just to know a few things about you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where do you live now, what you studied, some of your hobbies, interests, some of those things, just so we get to know who you are a little bit.
I'm Matt. Pete. I live in Oxford. I studied at Oxford Brookes University, where I did occupational therapy for 4 years. Yes.
And what are some of the things that you enjoy, your hobbies, interests?
I'm someone who enjoys interacting with other human beings, so that's quite a broad thing, I realise, but it often includes eating food together or just sitting and talking about different life topics, and or playing board games or playing a game of ultimate frisbee. Interacting with other humans is something I really enjoy. I sometimes enjoy bits of artwork, reading, running. Yes.
Nice. I feel like people can get to know you a little bit more. So you moved to the UK how many years ago is it now?
It was in the summer of 2015. I came to the UK after living abroad for my whole life at that point.
Yeah. And do you want to just because I think people could mistake you as looking British.
Yes.
But do you want to explain to people, about your upbringing, where you have lived, and maybe your experiences of different places that you've lived in as well?
Yeah, of course. So I have a British passport through my mother, who is from Liverpool, but she met my father in Zimbabwe, and they were living in Mozambique around the time I was born, but they had me in Zimbabwe at that time.
Do you have a Zimbabwe passport as well?
I don't. I wish I could. I wish I would get it, but maybe at a point of time when it would be more easy to do that. It's quite difficult to do that from afar, I think. And then I've also lived in 3 other African countries, which I remember more because I left those 2 very young. I was in Kenya for a significant amount of time. I also went to boarding school in Kenya while I was in the other 2 countries, which were South Africa and in North of Africa, in the country of Morocco. Yeah, I experienced lots of different cultures and things. I used to sound very American because I went to an international school. I used to say water instead of water. Um, and that's one thing that I found interesting coming to the UK is that the way I pronounce water. I used to say water. People didn't understand what I said, so I purposely changed it to water. Yeah, so I have quite a broad understanding of different cultures. And I came to the UK passportly British, having come to the UK every once in a while. But I would have said I was British, sort of, but I'm really understanding that I didn't really understand it. I think one big thing that was one big thing is still a bit difficult for me to fully grasp is I said I was British from the UK, but in the UK people say they are English from England or Scottish from Scotland or whatever, or the other two nations of the UK, and I don't understand how, for me, the UK is a country. Where for many people the UK is more complicated than that, and I still don't understand that. For me, I'm British because that's my passport, and it's really cool learning about those sorts of things. It's again something that I've been learning a lot. I was once in a dormitory at my boarding school where I had a Korean friend, I had a Nigerian friend, and I had an American friend in the room. So learning and growing about understanding different cultures has been a lot of my life, and coming to the UK has been another stage of doing that. And part of it has been the chameleon of my accent. I now sound very, they would say, Oxfordian in the way I speak because my accent has changed.
Yeah, I do remember when you first arrived, and so I knew Matt. I met him probably in your first few weeks of arriving in the UK, and yeah, I think I assumed you were an American student because of your accent. So I'd love to know what some of so you've obviously had this lovely upbringing in lots of different places, experiencing different cultures.
Yes.
So in Southern Africa, in sort of more Central Eastern Africa with Kenya, and so places in North Africa. So can you remember back to when you first arrived in the UK?
Yeah.
And what were some of the first impressions that you had? Maybe let's start with positive things. What were some of the things you thought, I enjoy this about this country?
I lived in London for a little bit before coming to Oxford, and the one thing I really like about the UK is that you can you can do quite a lot, experience the different things. It's generally quite you're free to go around. The public transport works really well. You can try so many different types of foods and those sorts of things. I also really loved, as a Christian, being involved in the church, in different churches where I've lived. That's been a really great experience for me. And I think British people are very, on the whole, very accepting and welcoming and willing to learn, and I really enjoy that. They could sometimes be a bit cruel to themselves too much and be open to other people. However, I think that's really useful for people coming in.
So how did you find making friends then initially?
I'm someone who throws myself in. I dive in. Um, that's an area where sometimes there's a bit of butting heads a little bit because I throw
What do you
myself
mean
in.
by that? What do you mean by butting heads? Just
Butting heads like the sort of conflict in understanding of relationships or the way things are done. Generally, people in people who've grown up in a general one culture or in one place, relationships are more slowly built and and the barriers are more well defined. Whereas I was very not like that. I just throw myself in. I'm a lot more direct and I ask questions and I want to know about people. Whereas British culture is often less like that, and sometimes that was a bit difficult. But I was also because I dove in, I made friends quickly.
yeah.
And if someone, and then I learned from the experiences where I was a bit over the, I overstepped the boundaries.
Yeah. Can
Sometimes,
you give
and that was
maybe give an example of what it like what it means to overstep the boundary, or like what? How did that show itself?
a good example is sort of personal space. I grew up many of the cultures, personal spaces, a lot less than in the British context. I've heard people jump away from me when I've stood too close to them.
Yeah.
Um, or and even people who I know quite well.
Mm.
And there's an example of two cultures butting heads. Is what I said. They they don't really mix very well. They
Mm.
don't do that. They do that. Um, so
And did that make you feel like uh, British people were being unfriendly?
sometimes yes, but I also had to realize that I was being unfriendly as well.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
there was, and that's very difficult for me to understand. For me, it was incredibly rude to have someone sort of jump or to be like, whoa, um, especially when you're wanting to be friendly, you're wanting to be affectionate to your friends and to be, you know, give them a hug
Mm.
or, you know, stand within a place where you feel is comfortable. But to them, it is very, to maybe a Englishman or a Scotsman or whatever, um, it is incredibly rude to overstep the boundaries,
Mm.
and that is unacceptable. And it will differ for different people, no doubt. However, that experience has taught me, and it will teach lots of different sort of people in similar situations where cultural misunderstandings happen, and you can learn
Mm.
from them and grow.
That's really interesting. And I guess uh, one other thing that um, people have said in the past that they find it hard to understand when they move to the UK is the sense of humour that British people can have, especially in their friendships.
Yeah.
So the term that people might use is banter. So I remember speaking to someone who had moved to the UK from the US, from America, and they were working in their office, and everyone was having this banter, this type of joking with each other, but they just saw it as people being mean to each other and couldn't understand it. Um, so I'd love to hear your thoughts about this idea of British humour, and if you've had any experiences of adjusting to that or learning from it, or I'd love to know your reaction to it when you first arrived.
I was useless. I was completely out of. I just didn't know what was happening. if it was cruel or if it was unacceptable, or when to laugh, should I laugh,
Yeah.
and and also whether you should tell the person off for being so cruel to their supposed friend or colleague. Those sorts of things. Um, when a friend who is from the UK is with another person who understands banter, they often know the boundaries and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, so they can do it. Whereas I did not. And understanding that is something that I continue probably the rest of the time living in this country to grasp. I also am someone who's I'm very gullible and very, I take people for their word. So I'm like, how can you say those things, or how can you act like that? They're like an interesting state of how the people from the UK interact is they're very critical of themselves or of the others, and that's just the acceptable way of being.
Yeah.
And it can be really good because it means they are critical of themselves. They're not just arrogant human beings. However, sometimes it's really important I've learned to sometimes step across those boundaries and ask, is there something behind what you're saying that is actually unacceptable, or that we can work through that is a problem? So sometimes that needs to be dealt with kindly. Sometimes if you know someone well enough, you can join in and you can have the laugh at them, and I think that is a great thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
But learning how to do it, I think it will take time, because it's, and I imagine as someone in any culture, the humor is a very important thing, but you have to do it with under wise in wisdom, because you don't want to do something foolish and hurt someone's feelings and lose a friend.
I think sometimes I will say to people who have just moved to the UK, if you feel like someone is being mean towards you, it might be because they're not a nice person and they're being mean. It might also be because they like you and they think they're your friend. And I think that can sometimes be really, really confusing. And so it's good to hear your perspective on it, that it does just take some time to get used to it. Yeah, thanks. And so what are some of the things that you maybe missed about the different cultures that you'd lived in? Are there things that when you arrived you thought, oh, I wish there was some of this, there was some of that? What were some of those things that maybe made you think, oh, life overseas isn't as good as I thought it would be?
Yeah, so life in the UK, there's many great things. There's other things that are difficult. So the understanding of how to be hospitable is quite different in the UK.
So what do you mean by that? Just explain that a bit more.
It's quite hard to describe. The UK, British people are not unhospitable, so they're not unwilling to have you into their homes and to cook for you and to do things with you. It's just that in the UK, what is the saying? Their home is their castle. Their home is their property, and that is the barrier in which they are the most safe. And that is a very important part of British culture, is barriers, not barriers, is privacy. I think that's a very important bit of how the UK mind works. And in that means that hospitality is not like it is in a nation like Morocco, where, for there's example maybe is the kitchen table, not the dining room table when you're eating. In the UK, you have the food in the middle, and you have plates, and then you serve the plates onto your own plates, and you eat from that plate, and you sort of chat to each other. In Morocco, it's a ginormous. If you're having couscous, it's a ginormous round
dish
thing in the middle, dish in the middle, and you all have a spoon, and you all have your slice of the and you interact, and you learn, and you eat together, and it's very communal, and often people will come round and they will be very interpersonal, and part of that is, for example, in the UK, people go to bed a lot earlier, or things close a lot earlier, so people are a lot more in their homes, whereas in Morocco people go alive at night time and things stay open. So it's just a different way of thinking, because Morocco is very warm in the daytime and it's cool in the night. In the UK, it's warmer in the daytime and it's often quite cold at the night, so you want to be at home. So in many ways, the way things are done are sometimes based around the way the environment is around you, and sometimes coming into it from, let's say, Morocco, it will feel quite odd not being welcomed into a British person's home for a long time, or odd that the shops close at 5 or at 6, or restaurants close quite early. But it's just a different way of thinking and doing. I think that's something that's very difficult and very different. Sometimes I miss the more communal aspect of living, and I was very much as said with the example where someone jumped away from me. I was someone who was much more used to sort of more physical closeness. It's kind of odd to say.
And are there things that, when you reflect back on your time in the UK, what are some of the things that you think you've learned about yourself?
I've become a lot more strong in who I understand who I am. Not only because of learning a different culture, but also just becoming more mature as I've gotten older and learned more. And
my wife's just come in.
Oh, is she?
Hi, Jemima. I'm just doing an interview with Matt that's being recorded, so you may well appear on YouTube.
Jemima, you're
thanks, Matt. I think we can probably finish there. There's lots that we've covered. Yeah. So thanks so much for your honesty. It's great to hear. I think it's great to hear some of the good things, and also some of the things that people may find difficult. I find it quite interesting that, the first thing that you said about yourself is that you are a person who likes to spend time with people. And so it's not unsurprising that therefore the things you found most challenging were all to do with relating with people. So just trying to work out building those friendships, how you fit in terms of humour, what's expected in terms of distance. And I know that lots of people who travel to a different culture and spend time overseas will experience different things. And making friendships can be a really big area of learning and growth and understanding. But it's also great to hear that you do have good friendship, like you were able to make friends.
Yes.
I think that's a really positive thing to say, because in the first few weeks or months of moving to a different culture, you can feel very alone. And
Mhm.
it's good to hear that you can make friends. Like,
Yes,
yeah.
and often those friends will come in surprising places.
Mm. Thanks very much, Matt. We'll finish there, and but it's been great to have you. Thank you for you sharing with us. Thanks so much for joining us on Life Overseas. I hope you found some of that helpful, and a big thanks to Matt for his honesty and sharing with us. If you'd like to find out more about the work that Friends International does in Oxford, then do just fill in the sign up form in the description. Thanks very much, and see you soon.